Thanks so much, Keith. This is the Friday segment of The Next Right Thing. And we feel so honored and privileged and humbled to be here with you. I'm Debbie Georgianni with Adam Blai, and we are the co-hosts of The Spirit World. Tomorrow, we have The Spirit World with Father Doug Brown. He's our guest. We rarely have guests on The Spirit World, Adam, and we hope that our listeners really and truly tune in. It'll be on Facebook and YouTube as well. They can watch it. And Father Doug Brown did such a great job answering all the questions that we asked on behalf of all the Spirit World listeners about the sacrament of reconciliation, confession, because there was a lot of misunderstandings. Some people had some bad experiences in the confessional. We wanted to clear everything up. But Adam and I feel very passionate about this topic that we're going to discuss today because, we're talking about discipleship. We're talking about passing on the faith, keeping the faith alive. We're talking about learning our faith, growing in our faith, going deeper in our faith. And Adam and I feel strongly that there are so many resources out there at our fingertips where we can just go onto the computer. You don't necessarily have to own a catechism. You don't have to own books in your home. You can just go onto your laptop and type in on the search bar there a particular Catholic subject in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and up pops all the paragraphs on it. And I just wonder, think to yourself, dear listeners, how many of you are doing that on a regular basis? I mean, I have to tell you, Adam, I do. All the time. Like if I'm walking through the house and all of a sudden I'm thinking about purgatory or something, I'll go, I'm really curious of what the Catechism says about that. And I will go to my laptop, type in CCC on purgatory, and up comes the paragraphs. I read it, and I'm having my own religious education class right there. What do you say to that, Adam? Don't you think we should encourage our listeners and our followers of the Catholic faith to truly do that kind of ongoing formation?
Deb, and I'm making a joke here. Everybody needs to become a Catholic radio host. Why do I say that? The last few years of working in Catholic radio has given me that motivation as we approach, talking about different topics, to go and do that little bit of research. And you know what? It doesn't take a whole ton of time. But you learn so much, and you're completely right, Deb. It's right at our fingertips now that, we're in the information age. There's no excuse to not know these things. It has been such a blessing to be involved in Catholic media because you kind of have that need to go and brush up on all of these various topics that come up. It is an amazing gift. I have learned so much more about the faith in recent years by doing this work, and it's wonderful. It's not like a drudgery, like a doing research for a term paper in high school or college. It's joyful because it all connects, Deb. It all interlinks, and as you learn more about the Eucharist, that leads to maybe, depending on how deep you go in there, that leads to understanding, things about confession, things about purgatory, as you said. All these things end up being interconnected. It's like building a stained glass window in your mind of your understanding of the faith, and as you learn each piece and each colored piece is added, you start seeing the bigger picture of the faith, and that ever increases in beauty and complexity as you learn more. So, yeah, I'm right with you. I have enjoyed doing this. I think you have too, being involved in Catholic media. And I'm with you. I'm encouraging everybody. You can do this also. Maybe pick a topic a week, so you're not feeling pressured, and say, I'm going to, go on and Google CCC Eucharist, and I'm going to go on and Google USCCB, United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, and Eucharist, and chip away at it over the week. These paragraphs are so dense and meaningful and subtle in some ways that it's just beautiful. And you're going to grow so much in your faith, and you're going to start appreciating the sacraments in new ways. You're going to start appreciating prayer. What if you were to just go research what the Church says about prayer? It seems like a simple word, but it's actually very rich and complex. So Yes, I think you're onto something, Deb.
Well, and Tim, our senior producer, is nodding his head because he's liking what we are sharing, because he said that's what happened to him as well. With taking in what we're learning on Catholic radio, Catholic media, and then it starts to make you want to learn more and work in Catholic media, and just you're like a sponge. You keep absorbing and absorbing, and it challenges you to go deeper and deeper. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this wonderful medium we get to use in radio, because God, I believe it's God's megaphone. He's using it wisely to reach each and every one of us, but he's not just asking us to just soak it in for that one moment that we're tuned in, but to continue on and to go deeper and to spread the news, to spread the message. If we learned something from Catholic radio, we should pass it on. We should say, hey, you need to tune in to Guadalupe Radio Network. You could hear some interesting things going on there that could really change your life. So this is all part of what we are called to do as baptized Catholics, and Christians. So I really believe that's important. And the one thing I would say to folks, and this is the challenge that Adam and I are going to be asking all of us to do, and we'll take part as well, is to think about it for a minute in prayer, like what really pops up that you struggle with. Maybe it's the Blessed Mother, maybe it's the Rosary, maybe it's a certain teaching of the church, and then go to your laptop and type in, but make sure you go to trusted Catholic sources, okay, like Catholic.com, EWTN, okay, and Tim mentioned that he likes the Catholic Encyclopedia at New Advent. There's other, trusted Catholic resources, and go there and research it on your own and see what you find. I can almost guarantee you it won't take you longer than 30 minutes. Okay. And so for 30 minutes, you will walk away understanding something in a deeper way, and maybe it can help you in your spiritual life. So I think I agree with you, Adam. It's important we do the work. The other thing, I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty, but we don't have any excuses anymore. We don't live, most of us do not live in an area where we don't have access to technology. And so what's going to happen when we meet the good Lord and he says, you had a laptop right in front of you? You could have learned all about this, right? And let's bring Tim, our producer, on, because Tim, you mentioned it quite beautifully, how it actually helped you and on your faith journey.
Oh, it's just funny the way Adam said it. I was like, yeah, everyone should become a Catholic radio host. It really is an education. It's in a good way. I converted from being, I grew up Baptist, became Episcopal, and then eventually became Catholic. And the next year, after I became Catholic, first I started listening to Catholic radio because I thought, I've got to learn how to talk like a Catholic. I've got to learn how to be like a Catholic in the world. And then I started working at Catholic radio, and my job was to go out and promote it to different parishes. And so I'm meeting these Catholics, these devout Catholics, these cradle Catholics all the time. But because I'm listening to the radio so much, I'm learning so much. And eventually they were thinking I was a cradle Catholic who was steeped in the faith and the Catholic culture. And I'm like, no, I'm just drinking from the Catholic fire hose here at Catholic radio. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. See, that's a perfect real life example right here on the Morning Joy team. See, Adam, that's what, but here's what I would love to ask our listeners. I'm not trying to lay any guilt. I'm not. But what are you going to do when you meet the Lord and he says you had it right in front of you? You had Catholic radio in front of you. You had a cell phone. You had a smartphone. You were able to research this. Why didn't you? What are people? I know I can say in good conscience, Lord, I tried every time I was near something that I could find out something about you. I did. I'm that type of person too, Tim. I was just drinking it all in, soaking it all in. I totally agree with you. But Adam, what would you say to people that are kind of sitting on the sidelines?
Well, I think for a lot of folks, that's the way we do it. We kind of passively go to church, get maybe some nugget out of the sermon, and then we basically hear things in our families. If the family is still, pretty active in their faith, oh, well, Grandma said that's not how that works, and, this is the reason we don't play with Ouija boards, or little things that are passed on in the Catholic culture. But I think it's really rare to say well, let me go to an authoritative place, and not picking on the things that are passed on in the family, but sometimes people have misunderstandings, or they have their own ideas or their own take on something the church teaches. And they pass it on as if it's definitive. And because mom or grandma said it, we just say, okay, well, that must be how it is. It can be really powerful to say, I'm going to take an active role in my discipleship. I'm going to take responsibility for my formation. And it's wonderful when people pass things on to me, but I'm going to go to the source. We have the living mystical body of Christ that is with us in the church, and we have access to him. We are supposed to be disciples, which is students of Jesus. And he is providing to us through these resources a depth, as you said, Deb, that previous generations, did not have access to. We have amazing depth and resources available to us in the mystical body of Christ. And I would just encourage people, take responsibility for it. If you misunderstood something Father said, or you didn't like what he said, or you want to make an argument that it should be a little bit different in the church, meaning like, oh, I don't think the church teaches that exactly, go be a disciple, learn it well, have a discussion, a civil discussion about it, but do the work of becoming that disciple that learns from the source and gets the depth, is what I'm saying.
Right. So take on your faith. Take ownership in that sense.
Take ownership, yeah.
Absolutely. There's no excuse, folks. We really have to really work at this and understand it better. And it's not just something that it's going to be infused in us and we go, oh, we have all the answers. I mean, that's why there's formation. And I think formation takes a lifetime in the Catholic Church because we are such a big, rich faith. So again, we have just an incredible, I believe, show tomorrow, The Spirit World. And here's another reason why we want you to tune into the Spirit World. We're going to be posting some resources on Facebook at the Spirit World Podcast. So if you can like us there, please continue to pick up those resources. Another way to continue the formation, because Adam and I, we think the Spirit World is great because of you, because you have embraced it and you love it and you love the topics that we're covering, and we're all learning and growing together. And it's just like this wonderful, solid catechesis in the area of angels and demons and everything in between. And that's very important. And we're not hearing a lot of it at church, so that we felt the need to step in and try to help in that formation area. And tomorrow is all about confession, the healing sacrament of confession, of reconciliation. Absolutely beautiful sacrament. And Father Doug Brown will be with us the whole entire hour. But to finish this segment today, for the Friday leading into the weekend, I think all of us, we all agree, the whole show team, that we want to challenge the Morning Joy listeners to really pick a topic in the Catholic faith and research it. Do your own, let's pretend that the professor said you got to write a 1-page paper on, you pick the topic and research it on trusted Catholic sources and go for it and see if it changes you. See if it changes the way you look at Mass and participate in Mass during the weekend. I agree with you, Adam. It's so beautiful to learn and grow every single day with God centered things, because you're constantly evolving. Do you feel that way, Adam?
Yes. And there's a final aspect to this, Deb, that I think is important too, and that is it is so protective of our spiritual lives to learn what the Church truly teaches about these topics, both in depth and breadth when we go into them, because there are so many kind of strange ideas or personal takes on things that are out there, people claiming to have visions or locutions from God or, Jesus or Mary with special messages. And there's a whole lot of apocalyptic talk, and different people want to talk about it's the end times and you need to, tear your life apart because everything's going to be over by, the next year. There's a whole lot of things that kind of threaten our peace and threaten our proper faith, our proper walk with Jesus, that learning the tried and true, vetted, official teaching on these topics is very protective, because it touches on what we've talked about earlier in the week with devotions. There are devotions that are approved by the Church, meaning they have been studied thoroughly and they don't contradict the faith or lead people off in a strange direction that takes them away from the heart of the faith, which source and summit is the Eucharist. It's a relationship with Jesus. Well, this kind of deliberate discipleship we're talking about, where you take responsibility and ownership and learn more, is going to protect you from these strange ideas that people may come at you with, or that you may come across on the internet, where somebody claims to speak with authority, or they claim to have such an unusual experience that they say you should focus on me. And these kind of essentially little cults form around individuals that claim to have gifts or special messages, and they can draw people away from the proper experience of the faith, the proper walk with Jesus in the church. And to be able to defend yourself against these ideas, these propositions that want to, take you off kilter a little bit, you need to know the truth, and you need to know the proper understanding so that you can say, no, this isn't right. This isn't for me. This is not approved, or that's completely contrary to what I know the church teaches because I read about it. And I think that's kind of an empowering thing, particularly for parents, because the parents have a responsibility to form their kids in the faith. And if they don't know what the church truly teaches, when the kids come home with maybe some odd ideas, you don't know how to give them a good correction that teaches them the truth to help them defend themselves. So I think this is a very important aspect of it.
Wow, that was powerfully said. I'm glad you did, for our listeners. But okay, we're going into the weekend, and we hope that every Catholic, baptized Catholic, every Catholic goes to Mass, right? So why don't we do this, if I can, since we didn't get a chance to pick a topic. I really think that the best way to just get started is just go to your phone, go to your computer, type in CCC, which is Catechism of the Catholic Church on the Eucharist, and up pops almost 100 paragraphs on the Eucharist. Okay, now the paragraphs sometimes are only 1 and 2 sentences long. Pick 1 or 2 paragraphs, just meditate on that, let it sink in, see if it changes the way you view the Eucharist as you attend Mass this weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can be that subtle, that simple, that slight of a kind of a dripping of theological truth, Adam, that can really help a soul go deeper into the source and summit of our faith. And during this Eucharistic revival at the parish level, I think it's important we do the necessary work and homework and understanding and formation so we make ourselves better Catholic Christians. What do you say?
I think that's great, Deb. And I think it's a great topic to start with because it is so deep and so broad. And you're right on. Read a little bit until, it's as much as you can kind of hold in your mind at the moment and reflect on that. And then read a little bit more and give yourself time. If it's going to take a few weeks to continue to study that, that's great. That's fine. If you want to switch topics and put a pin in it and come back to where you left off with the Eucharist later, maybe something Father says in the homily really strikes you and you say, I want to learn about that this week, or I'm going to take a few days on that. But don't let the Eucharist go. If you're going to study that section, keep working at it, because there's a reason all those paragraphs are there. There is that much to be said. Each paragraph is kind of a particular topic in the mind of the writer that is a separate topic that is important. And so allow yourself that time, even if it takes for the rest of the year. Work on those paragraphs on the Eucharist. Be at peace with it. Don't think of it as a burden or a big task that's hanging over you. Think of it as a gift, where Jesus is going to open his heart to you more and more in his sharing with you in the Eucharist. And by you deepening your understanding of what's going on there, you're going to enter into it in new and deeper ways.
Love it. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Tim, for joining us. And that'll do it for this week's The Next Right Thing. God willing, we'll be with you on Monday. But join us for the Spirit World. Please don't forget to tune in 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Guadalupe Radio Network. It's heard on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. So it's just amazing to go far and wide, worldwide. So we're very blessed. So please continue to like us on Facebook at the Spirit Spirit World podcast because we're going to post some resources there. Don't forget to do the challenge on the Eucharist and then go into the Spirit World on Saturday on confession. And by Sunday, you're going to be like mini experts in 2 of the 7 sacraments. Just think of that. Okay, have a beautiful and blessed weekend. Now back to Keith.